Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 5:06, and yes, sir, you have made it to the end of the week. We're going to finish it strong here and then launch you straight into your weekend. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a great 4 hours ahead of you, starting at 6:35. Art Baker running for House of Representatives in Maryland, the 3rd Congressional District. 7:05, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Talk about 34 senators now demanding Joe Biden stop this plan to accept Gazan refugees. 7:35, Rich Anderson, chairman of the Virginia Republican Party, on today's first day of early voting. And then, at 8:35, one of our faves, Congressman Byron Donalds of Florida, who had a bit of a confrontation there as he visited the campus of George Washington University. Someone called him an Uncle Tom. Patrice Onwuka, would you recommend somebody calling Byron Donalds?
Have you seen this guy? Although he probably knows the real history behind Uncle Tom, so he might actually see that as a badge of honor.
That's true. Uncle Tom is a heroic figure from Uncle Tom's Cabin.
If you know your history,
that's right.
You know
but
that.
It's been Harriet Beecher Stowe, but they've twisted it around.
They have, yes,
into being a pejorative,
a slur.
Good morning, Patrice Onwuka. Good to have you.
Happy Friday. We already jumped right in.
It is happy. It's a great. I'm feeling good this Friday. Friday. Are you? Are you all charged up and ready to go?
Well, I am ready to go. Not fully charged, but I'm ready to go.
I understand you had a toddler dilemma through the middle of the night. Those of us who have already been through the toddler years know exactly, or parenting a toddler, I should say, know exactly what you're talking about.
Every once in a while,
they just decide to wake up and say, okay, let's start the day. It's
Mommy, I want to jump in the pool today and just start talking, and
dude, it's 1 a.m.
Yes.
They don't have a concept of time.
They don't.
It's true. They wake up and they say, well, that's all I needed. Let's go.
I'm awake. You
Good
should
nap.
be too.
Yeah, everybody. Oh, it's bad. You'll get through it.
But don't worry. I'm here. I've got energy for this.
See, soon they're going to be young adults, and you'll be the one waking up at 1 a.m. in a cold sweat, terrified about who they're out with.
I know.
So...
Well, we're going to raise them so that's not going to happen.
No,
but
you'll still be scared.
It
still happens. And that's why, and that's the joy of parenting. When I remember, I think it was my dad who said, after our first baby, 6 months in, he's like, you getting any sleep? I said, yeah, but it's not great. It's not great. I'm waking up. He goes, well, the good news is that it's always like this. Even when they're grown up.
That is so true.
You'll never really have another good night's sleep because you're a dad now.
For a long stretch.
Thanks, Dad. Well, I'm glad that you made it to.
I'm here, and thank you for wearing pink on this Friday. I mean, I didn't wear pink today.
I don't want everyone to think that I'm like walking around dressed. This is radio, and they don't know exactly. They're making it sound like I'm dressed head to toe in Pepto-Bismol or something. I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and it does have some pink.
It's a nice
big
shirt.
Pink hibiscus.
Yes.
Because Fridays starting in May through October. Fridays feel like Hawaiian shirt days. You know what I mean?
We could do Friday print day. Hawaiian print Friday?
Print day. You're such a girl. Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Thank you. That's a compliment.
I think we should. I mean, that's because
I like that idea.
Every weekend sort of feels like you want to make it feel like a vacation.
Exactly.
All right. So
we got this.
That's why I'm wearing this. We should put a picture out on social media so everyone knows what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Right,
I will take a picture.
We'll get into that. All right. So are you going to be the vice president for Donald Trump? Is he going to pick you?
I cannot
Patrice?
because I'm a naturalized citizen. I'm not U.S. born.
That means we could never have President Patrice Onwuka unless we revoke the. We got to change the Constitution. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can run for Senate. I can run for.
That's right.
House. I can run for.
But
governor.
you can't be in the. Okay. Well, if it's not you, then this makes you an objective observer. Then
yes.
you don't have any skin in the game.
I have no dog in the race.
Well, there are a lot of articles and a lot of speculation now about who might be the vice presidential pick. I think, frankly, when this trial in Manhattan is over and the president is free to do, a major tour around the country and what have you, I think he should name the person sooner rather than later. I think it would throw a dynamic into the race. And
from what he said, he's telegraphed that he plans on doing it. He's probably likely to announce before the summer.
Before the convention.
The convention.
So the question is, will it be the person who has always been on a short list for running mate, who is in the news these days for shooting her dog in the face?
Well, Sean, you know how the fake news works. They leave out some or most of the facts of a story. They put the worst spin on it, and that's what's happened in this case. I hope people really do buy this book and they find out the truth of this story, because the truth of this story is that this was a working dog, and it was not a puppy. It was a dog that was extremely dangerous. It had come to us from a family who had found her way too aggressive. We were her second chance, and she the day she was put down was a day that she massacred livestock that were part of...
Hold on. I got to stop.
The day she was put down.
Put down. It's very third person there.
Sounds like she took them to the vet.
Yes.
The dog to the vet.
A little lethal injection, right? Maybe, okay, we're going to put the dog in the car, crack the window, close the garage door, and turn the car on. And a half an hour later, we'll find out what happened. The dog was not put down. She put the dog down.
She shot the dog.
Deliberately. And in the book, she said, I hated that dog. So she had an extra grind. Far be it for me to be the fake news here, but we're literally just quoting her book. And the fact that she's doing the spin work. Kristi Noem, of course, we're talking about the governor of South Dakota. The third person, very far removed of the process language there, the day the dog was put down. I'm smelling some spin here. Are you?
She is trying to salvage her Veepsakes position.
Yeah.
And the second part is after the dog had massacred all of these chickens. She makes it sound like this is a dog with like a Terminator's animal.
Well, I'll tell you, if a dog does get into a neighbor's chicken coop and kills all the dogs, that's a major problem. And maybe to smooth things over with the neighbor, she just said, don't worry, I killed that dog. To make the I get that. The biggest problem is not necessarily that she killed the dog.
No,
it's that she bragged about it in her book voluntarily.
Like in the book, it made her seem like she's the cowgirl handling business, taking down the rabid animals on the farm.
And the initial spin on this story, before it was don't believe the fake news spreading this story and leaving out context, the initial response was, yes, I did that, and I'll do it again. This proves I can make the tough choices and do what has to be done, even if it's uncomfortable for people. Now it's, that's fake news.
You know, if you go into a job interview and they say, can you give me a time where you had to make a tough decision? I don't know if I would pull out, I shot my family dog as the example of, yes, you should be the vice president of the United States based on that one qualification.
Say no more.
President Trump doing an Apprentice style. Okay, Kristi Noem, you tell me, why should you stay be my apprentice? And she says, because I shot the family dog. Larry, I don't know. That's not that compelling.
Knowing the way that show, I loved that show.
Me too.
It was the best show.
Especially the early seasons.
I'm very upset that they don't show the reruns anymore. It's because they used to show them on CNBC all the time. And but knowing how that show was, my guess is that you shot the dog. All right, listen, I'm not going to hire you, but I'm going to keep you on for a while because this is great television. And so she might still be on the short list just because it's great television. Here again, speaking of television, she's on with Hannity last night.
Our neighbors, she attacked me, and it was a hard decision. And the reason it's in the book is because this book is filled with tough, challenging decisions that I've had to make throughout my life. And I hope that people understand from this that what the point of this story is that most politicians, they will run from the truth. They will shy away and hide from making tough decisions. I don't do either of those. I tell the truth and I make tough decisions. People attacked me during COVID for keeping my state open. They called me wrong and attacked me night after night on TV for not doing mandates and not forcing people to get vaccines or wear masks. They're doing it again now with this. I just hope people will read the book, find out the truth, because this was a dangerous animal. And I had a choice between keeping my small children and other people safe or a dangerous animal, and I chose the safety of my children.
All right, we will break this down a little further and also explore who else might be on that list and who's not on the list, including the governor of South Dakota, whether this is going to sort of keep her from being considered. We'll get into all that in just a moment.
WMAL. Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Later this morning on the Chris Plante Show, a university in Iran is offering free rides to American students who've been expelled for hating Jews. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
And that's what's happened in this case. I hope people really do buy this book and they find out the truth of this story, because the truth of this story is that this was a working dog, and it was not a puppy. It was a dog that was extremely dangerous. It had come to us from a family who had found...
As Julie Gudlock said on the X platform yesterday, oh, now the dog is Cujo.
Yeah.
Extremely dangerous.
I would call this a fail.
It was self-defense.
No, good luck making that argument. Nobody's buying it.
All right. So who is on the short list? We're hearing Marco Rubio is still being considered very seriously. Ron DeSantis just had a recent meeting with President Trump, and they seem to have buried the hatchet and moving forward to win the election together. Could that also include Ron DeSantis being on the ticket?
I think so.
Burgum's name I keep hearing. I've heard people float Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Patrice, break this down for me.
Okay, so Bloomberg is reporting as of yesterday that the former president has narrowed his choices to 4 top contenders. I don't believe it, but this is Bloomberg. They think they have the inside scoop. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, Republican Senators J.D. Vance of Ohio would be important, Marco Rubio, and Tim Scott. That said, there's still some other folks that are that you just listed that could be on the list. Governor Ron DeSantis, for example, Governor Glenn Youngkin here in Virginia could also be there. And let's see. I mean, I think those are the top ones. It sounds like Vivek Ramaswamy is pretty much out of the running at this point, so don't look for him there. I think those are kind of and there could be a dark horse. What if Governor Mike Pence comes back on the ticket? Do you think he's off for good?
Oh God, yes. Are you kidding?
That's a no-brainer,
yes,
right?
I don't think Pence has a shot. I usually in cases like this, the people who are on the first short list are actually not legitimate.
That makes sense.
And wasn't there a story? Our friend Billboard Chris had pointed out that he'd been approached by. So apparently, people on Twitter who have a really big following, they're often approached by individuals who are trying to get a word or message out, sort of like embedded paid content, where they would be paid to put information out there or to put a story out there, especially if they're not a journalist, where they are under certain standards for like here at broadcast here on this radio station. If we were to do that, if somebody paid us to be on the air during our show, we would have to disclose that. We would want to disclose that so everybody knew that. And we don't do that. We haven't done that here on this program. But we do have some people on the weekends, and it's perfectly announced. We say, the following message is
brought to you
as a paid statement. On Twitter, you don't have to do that, especially if you're not a journalist. And so it was revealed that people trying to float the name Doug Burgum and advance Doug Burgum's possibilities were actually paying some influencers to get their name out there.
So the Doug Burgum thing could just be
it could be real, but it could also be boosted by some PR efforts, let's say.
Well, when we think about what the VP candidate needs to bring to the ticket, they're either he or her, she or him, they, them.
I got you.
Either need to bring.
Are you saying Dylan Mulvaney has a chance?
I hope not. But they need to bring some sort of electoral vote to the count, right? So a state that could be a swing state in play.
It would help.
Theoretically, it helps. They need to bring a constituency that maybe the President Trump needs. In the past, Mike Pence brought the evangelical Christian vote with him. So some sort of constituency that he doesn't already have, but he has a lot of constituencies other than the Never Trumpers and the Lincoln Project folks, which I don't think anybody
so Bill
wants to
Kristol
bring.
has a chance.
Why?
I
Be
don't
surprised
think so.
about
that.
No,
he can win without that vote. So let's look that through. Well, he also needs someone who will be loyal. And who will help him promote his agenda and get
whether
stuff
that's on
done.
the Hill, so good Hill relationships, maybe somebody who's in the Senate.
Right. Doug Burgum's so let's look at the short four and see how they fit that mold. Doug Burgum brings, he's a businessman, big on energy, oil production, exploration, things like that. Again, that's a vote he's already got, but he could also he can do things. J.D. Vance is definitely a true believer, sort of bolsters the MAGA thing. So really, he's about being loyal and helping him.
I don't know if he has the relationships on the Hill to bring
Not yet.
to the table.
He's only been there, 6 months. But he can also be a front man. He can be a face. You can trust him to Marco Rubio, now
he checks a lot of boxes.
He's Latino. Florida is already in the bag, but he's also he's one of those likable Republicans that could offset some of the hard edges of
former
Donald
establishment.
Trump.
He's less establishment than he used to be, but still
Aren't
respected.
we all?
I know, right?
Tim Scott, black man.
Yeah.
We
forgot the demographic box, but we're leaving that out because you know what? We don't believe in DEI here.
Right. Although, well, you said reach out to a constituency that maybe he doesn't have, and that's what I meant by that. By the way, it's baked in the cake that the number one criteria is these people are qualified to be able to take over the presidency at any given time.
That's
so
understood.
we're not trying to reduce these people to their categories. Yeah. Obviously, they are all four of them could take over the job if necessary.
Absolutely.
But here's the other great thing about Tim Scott. He's very likable.
He is.
People really like him.
He is hugely likable. Yeah. Something that I think is unique to President Trump, he's not going to want someone who's going to upstage him. And I think with a Tim Scott, he's got someone, we've seen Tim Scott with President Trump on stage, and Tim Scott is a great hype man, but steps back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not going to be somebody who's going to kind of take the shine off of President Trump. And that I think that probably runs neck and neck with the loyalty aspect.
According to this Politico article, they're re-reporting what we've already known. It appears that Vivek Ramaswamy has been told that he is no longer in consideration for that job, but Trump would like him in the cabinet.
Oh, yeah.
And according to this report, Governor Kristi Noem has no shot at the position.
Yikes.
After she recounted the 20-year-old story about killing her dog. So there it is.
No shot.
No shot. Fill in your joke here. It's 5:24.
Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
5:36, O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here to our program that we really enjoy and take great pride in. So thank you for being part of it because, well, you are part of it. It's 6:35. Art Baker is running for Congress in Maryland's 3rd District. 7:05, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Talk about Biden's plan to bring in Gazan refugees. 7:35, Richie Anderson, chairman of the Republican Party in Virginia. And then at 8:35, Byron Donalds of Florida, who just went to those protests at George Washington University. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning, Larry.
How are you?
I am feeling good.
All right, good. Just checking in. You'll remember this story. It was an outrage. President Biden, his spokespeople, Kamala Harris, other members of the administration falsely accused Border Patrol agents of whipping illegal immigrants as they were attempting to illegally cross our border. They were on horseback. These were Haitian illegal immigrants, 2 years ago, I want to say?
2021. It was around September of 2021.
So 3 years ago, they had encamped under a overpass right across from the Rio Grande. And they were running amok, trying to illegally cross. The Border Patrol agents were doing their job. Some of them are on horseback. They're mounted patrol officers, incredibly skilled horsemen, by the way, to be able to do that sort of thing.
Of course.
And it's a great way for crowd control. You go to any big city, and they've got a mounted patrol, especially New York is famous for it. When they're dealing with crowd control, it's a good way to get people in line. You don't want to mess with somebody on a horse.
Yeah.
Of course, there were stirrups and reins involved with handling these horses. And these idiots in D.C. who have never been around a horse except for maybe putting a couple of dollars on one at Pimlico for a horse race, they said, well, look at them. We're whipping them. And, of course, Haitians are black.
Yes.
And so, it evokes all of these, it's like slavery.
The
it's
racial
like
undertones, yes.
And so they launched this huge investigation, which was not necessary.
Yeah.
And it took a year, and then it was discovered that, of course, there were not only was there no, racial attacks on these people or whipping and that sort of there wasn't even any accidental contact. I mean,
no, none whatsoever.
They didn't nothing, not one piece of leather strap. And what did Biden say? They were strapping them. Is what Biden said, because they knew that they weren't whipped, so they said they were strapped. Biden actually accused them in his own words.
Let's not forget that at that time, this was a few months into the president, 5-6 months into President Biden's administration. Suddenly, the border started to become a problem. Only a couple of news outlets were even paying attention to the increase, the sudden increase in migrants coming from other countries trying to get into our southern border illegally. The most mainstream news outlets totally ignored the border and said there was nothing going on. There was no surge coming in at the border. And then suddenly, eventually Haitians started emerging, and then you had this picture of these two Haitian men and a white man on horseback, and then everyone suddenly paid attention to the southern border and only cared about it in that moment, including President Biden, who found time to come out and make statements talking about the racism of this.
Yes, it conjures images of a dark past in our country and And of course, all of it was a lie.
It was a lie. It was a lie.
Here's the best. This is sort of the cherry on top of this whole story now, because there have been no formal apologies. Nobody's gotten their reputation back. Nobody has walked it back. Nobody's been fired.
President Biden at the time said, "I promise you, those people will pay."
That's right. Yeah, there you go.
Quote.
So one of the Border Patrol agents who was seen in these AP photographs. Oh, do we? You know what? Before we even get to it, before we tell you the good news, let's just remind you exactly what they said at the time. Here's your border czar.
First of all, I've been very clear about the images that you and I both saw of those law enforcement officials on horses. I was outraged by it. It was horrible and deeply troubling. There's been now an investigation that is being conducted, which I fully support, and there needs to be consequence and accountability. Human beings should not be treated that way, and as we all know, it also evoked images of some of the worst moments of our history.
You know, you're Vice President of the United States. I assure you, if you pick up the phone, you say, could you get somebody from Border Patrol on the phone so I can find out exactly what this is all about?
What's going on.
Before I go out and say something about it. I assure you, your phone call will be taken, and you will be.
Of course.
It didn't take long. I mean, within 12 hours, everybody knew the story. Everybody knew what this was. And in fact, it didn't even take that long for a lot of people who have been around horses their whole lives. They looked at the picture and said, well, this isn't whipping, and those are just reins, and there's straps, and there's absolutely no, and you can tell that they're not using them on these people in any way. So there's your vice president. Here's the spokesperson, Psaki.
First of all, I've been very clear about the...
That is not Jen Psaki. Oh, that's the same cut there, Heather. If you want to give me the Ducey Psaki clip at some point. But in the meantime, let's jump to the good news.
Yes.
Because just yesterday, one of the Border Patrol agents who was falsely accused, who appears in these pictures, was actually given an award.
A Border Patrol Achievement Award.
Yeah.
That's, you know what? This is actually someone getting their due reward, which is a good service. Someone who has, had a track record of actually serving the Department of Homeland Security very well.
And may I, real specifically here, he was doing intel work on human smuggling. Because that's what they're trained to do. That's the kind of great work that these guys do, instead of just sitting there as, processing all of the people that they're allowing in.
Exactly. Well, and so unfortunately, that's where our Border Patrol agents are frustratingly forced to do, which is to play babysitter or play paper pusher at the southern border, rather than trying to stop human smuggling, stop human sex trafficking, stop the trafficking of illegal weapons and drugs into our country. And you know what? This is actually the best kind of retribution that could happen for your name to be cleared. Although
the best kind of retribution is that everybody be fired for saying that this
including
person,
the top man on the job.
Absolutely. We got to wait till November for that. But a DHS source told the New York Post, I find it hilarious and ridiculous that almost 3 years later, a Border Patrol agent who was accused of being racist and so vilified by this administration now wins an achievement award for his efforts in preventing smuggling before he gets a public apology. He's never gotten a public apology, but he's got an award. And by the way, let's just be clear. He was accused of being a racist, one of the worst vile racists you can be, like a slave owner whipping his slaves back in the 17th century. Those children and individuals that he is trying to, keep from being smuggled, the people he's trying to save, human smugglers, they're minorities. They're people of color.
Right.
They've got black or brown skin. He's actually a savior.
He's actually freeing them from slavery, because a lot of human smuggling and trafficking is slavery. These people are being held against their will.
He's done more to help people of color than Joe Biden ever has even dreamt of doing. And
or his vice president, for that matter.
Additional question about something that happened a few months ago down at the border. We've been told that the mounted Border Patrol officers the president accused of whipping migrants have been notified they will not face criminal charges. So when is the president going to apologize to them?
There is a process and an investigation that's gone through the Department of Homeland Security. I don't have any update on that.
He still hasn't apologized. It's 5:45. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives with Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. Yesterday in Arkansas, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders became the very first female governor to stand up against President Biden's rewriting of Title IX. In other words, she's standing up for the real definition of woman and for women in sports.
I can't think of anything more offensive or dismissive of the very real, very scientific traits that all women share and that no man does. I find myself asking, where are all the so-called feminists? Women fought for so long to have equal access to sports and higher education. Are we really going to throw that all away in the name of political correctness? Walk down any street in Arkansas, from Little Rock to Mountain Home, and ask someone the difference between a man and a woman. You will probably get a pretty straightforward answer. But apparently, our leaders in Washington can't tell the difference anymore. It would be laughable if it weren't so threatening.
When she made that statement, she was flanked by your colleague at Independent Women's Forum, Riley Gaines, of course, who is a friend of this program, has been on often. This is just another state to push back and add to the growing list who are suing the Biden administration over this policy.
Yeah, absolutely. And enshrining in state law the sex definition, the definitions of sex and woman, being grounded in science and frankly, even common sense. And, you know, you'd think, why do we need to enshrine in law the definition of a woman and the definition of sex? But here we are in 2024, where now the Biden administration is twisting Title IX federal law to say, you know what, if you feel like you're a woman today, go on into the locker room, go on and join the sports team, take away opportunities for biological women. And so, you know, it's fantastic. We really thank Governor Sanders Huckabee Sanders for standing up for women, for standing up for young women, and doing what the true feminists, or the ones that claim to be, they've been silent on.
We've literally reached the point, Patrice, where you propose a law that says, well, you know, we want to make sure that there's no sex discrimination on campuses and that women have equal rights and access to all facilities, to all sports, that money that is spent, and you can argue whether this is correct and proper or not, but the law has been for decades now that the same amount of money that's spent on male athletics by the taxpayers and by federal funding should also be spent on women's athletics, because we want to make sure that women have all of those opportunities and all of those rights. And we've reached the point where the person responding to that proposal now says, oh, okay, but first, when you say woman, let's figure out exactly what you mean by that.
You mean the person with male genitals,
that's right,
facial hair?
Because I'm here to protect women, and this dude is the woman that I'm wanting to protect.
It's unfortunate, but that's what we've had to do. And so, you know, I'm grateful to see that so many states have jumped on board. We want to see some blue states actually jump on board with this, but unfortunately, a lot of blue state lawmakers, they're more beholden to the LGBTQ agenda than they are to science.
You're right.
To frankly common sense and everyone else, real women.
And by the way, you know, it's a common sort of meme for people to say, I'm old enough to remember when, right? But I am old enough to remember the early 2000s, when state by state by state started pushing back against what they saw as a creeping agenda in the culture and from the federal government to legalize same-sex marriage. And just like states right now are defining the actual biological difference between men and women. State by state by state, there were referendums, including liberal states like California, that voted to define. It's like, okay, we've reached the point now where that when we say marriage, we have to define legally what marriage means. Up until now, everyone knew what marriage was, but now we're going to define it. And states voted overwhelmingly every time it was on the ballot that marriage was between one man and one woman. And then the Supreme Court stepped in. And the Supreme Court said, not anymore. And this is where this is headed.
It is.
It's every state is doing this. It's a fight with the federal government.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to rely on the Supreme Court to come in and stop the. I don't want it that way. I think states should be able to do this, but that is what's going to happen.
Well, at IWF, we're joining in lawsuits and helping both those detransitioners who are suing, but also the Kappa Gamma gals,
yes,
the sorority women, female sororities who are suing because men are being allowed into their private spaces, getting erections while they walk past. Yeah. And so if that heads to the Supreme Court, then that's where we're going to take the fight.
It is 5:53 in the morning, and you just talked about men getting erections. Patrice.
In the context of...
I know, but you have to give me a warning on things
spaces.
like that. Everyone should be warned. It's early.
Giving you the facts.
It's 5:53.